Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be back.
Today, we're going to tackle a company that's been making some serious waves in the renewable energy sector.
Yeah, definitely a lot of buzz lately.
We're talking about Suzlon Energy. And trust me, this isn't just another energy company story.
Oh, absolutely not.
Suzlon's journey is a wild one. From their totally unexpected start in a completely different industry to facing some major financial hurdles to now being poised for a major comeback.
It's a roller coaster, that's for sure. But before we get into all that, let's just quickly lay out what we have in front of us.
Sounds good.
So we've got their company overview, financial reports, recent news articles, even some analyst opinions.
Right, so we're going to break all that down, give our listeners a clear picture of what Suzlon Energy is all about, where they stand today, and maybe even try to peek into that crystal ball and see what the future holds.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what might surprise people the most is Suzlon's beginnings. They weren't always this renewable energy powerhouse.
Okay, so spill the beans. Where did they actually start?
Believe it or not, they were actually a textile company back in 1995.
Wait, textiles?
Yeah.
Like clothing and fabrics?
The real deal. It's hard to imagine now seeing them as this major player in wind energy. But yeah, they started out in a completely different field.
So what prompted such a dramatic shift?
Well, it seems like they recognized the potential of renewable energy really early on. And they decided to completely transform their business. Talk about a bold move.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that move definitely paid off, at least initially. They became a global giant in the wind energy market.
They did, but it hasn't always been smooth sailing.
That's true. They hit some pretty rough waters financially, right?
Oh, yeah. They were drowning in debt for a while, even went through bankruptcy proceedings. Those were some dark days for Suzlon.
It's impressive that they managed to claw their way back from that.
Absolutely. They really had to restructure, make some tough decisions.
The turnaround seems pretty remarkable.
It is. Their latest financials are really promising. In Q2 of FY 2025, their net profit shot up by, get this, over 80% year on year.
Whoa, 80%. That's huge. No wonder their stock price is soaring these days.
Yeah, investors are definitely taking notice. Remember back in 2020, their stock was trading at a dismal 1.56.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. A tough time for anyone holding that stock.
Well, fast forward to today, and it's trading between 67 and 82. It's a remarkable comeback story.
Talk about a glow up. But is this sudden surge sustainable? What are analysts saying about the long-term prospects?
Good question. Analysts are cautiously optimistic. They've pointed out a couple of key support and resistance levels to watch. Around 64 seems to be a strong support, and there's resistance between 80 and euro and 82.
Okay, that's helpful for investors trying to navigate this, but it sounds like the overall sentiment is pretty positive.
It is. Suzlon is generating a lot of buzz, not just among seasoned investors, but also among retail investors. It's becoming a bit of a darling in the renewable energy space.
And why not? I mean, the renewable energy sector in India is absolutely booming. The government's pushing for green energy adoption. There are all sorts of incentives. And globally, everyone's talking about ESG investing. It's like a perfect storm for a company like Suzlon.
It does seem like they're riding a powerful wave, but let's not forget it's a competitive market out there.
Right. Who are some of the big players Suzlon's up against?
They've got some formidable competition, giants like Siemens Gamesa, Vestas, Inox Wind. These are heavy hitters in the global wind energy market.
So how does Suzlon plan to hold its own against such fierce competition?
Well, one of their biggest advantages is their strong domestic foothold. They really understand the Indian market, have a well-established infrastructure, and a deep network of local expertise. That's something their competitors can't easily replicate.
That local expertise is definitely a key differentiator. But even with that, they must be facing some challenges, right? I mean, no business is without its hurdles.
Of course. I'd say the volatility of raw material prices is a major concern for Suzlon. Prices fluctuate, impacting their production costs, making it harder to maintain those profit margins.
That makes sense. Unpredictable costs can really throw a wrench in any business plan. What else?
Well, the competition is always a factor, both in India and globally. They need to constantly innovate and stay ahead of the curve to remain competitive.
And let's not forget their debt situation. Even though they've made progress, they're not completely out of the woods yet, right?
Right. That debt still needs to be managed carefully. It's hanging over their heads and could impact their future growth if they're not careful.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've talked about Suzlon's incredible journey from textiles to turbines, their impressive comeback, and their position in this booming renewable energy market. But let's get down to brass tacks. For the investor out there listening, is Suzlon a good investment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's tricky. There's definitely potential for high rewards, but the risks are there too. It's a volatile market, and Suzlon still has some challenges to overcome.
So not exactly a slam dunk, but potentially worth a closer look.
Exactly. If you're a long-term investor, someone who's comfortable with a bit of risk, and you understand the complexities of the renewable energy landscape, then Suzlon might be a company worth adding to your watch list.
That's good advice. And as we wrap up, it's clear that Suzlon's story is very much tied to the broader story of renewable energy.
It really is. Their success or lack thereof will depend a lot on how the renewable energy sector evolves, not just in India, but globally.
And that leaves us with a final thought for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah.
How will advancements in renewable energy technology and government policies shape Suzlon's future, and what implications does this have for the renewable energy sector as a whole?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but as always, we encourage everyone to do their own research and stay informed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Suzlon Energy, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
See you then.